Hi all and welcome to Life of Try's Beginner's Guide to Triathlon. In this episode we're going to specifically discuss the bike element of the triathlon. So it depends if you come from a cycling background or not, or whether you're completely new to triathlon and specifically completely new to cycling. There's a lot to take in. With triathlon you've got three different disciplines. The bike is sometimes the most complicated if you don't come from that world, to understand exactly what type of bike you need, the setup of the bike, and then physically how you use it. So all of this is important. So we'll go into a number of different topics or areas which I feel you just need to be mindful of before signing up for a triathlon. So your starting point of where you are with your fitness and your skill level is important. Chances are you probably rode a bike when you were younger, as a child, it's whether you've cycled anything in the last few years or anything competitively, whether that be a sporty or whether that just be a fun ride. What have you done recently, and that would give you an indication of maybe some of the work that you need to put in. Chances are if you haven't cycled since your childhood, you probably were cycling mountain bikes or some sort of hybrid bike. Cycling within a triathlon race is very different. It will depend on the type of race that you're doing, but majority of them will use road bikes or triathlon specific bikes. Choosing the equipment is something that will probably be quite personal to you, but there are a number of factors to take into account. Your budget, the type of race that you're doing, and where you want to go in the sport as well. What I would suggest is, for your first time triathlon, maybe use what you already have, what you can borrow from a friend, or maybe what you can buy second hand or even hire. All of this takes into account where you are and your circumstances at that point. We often get asked on the channel, what type of bike do I need? And again, unfortunately, that will depend on the race. There are some triathlon races out there which are cross-tri, and that's basically off-road riding. But for the majority, they'll probably be on the road. So you, depending on the type of race, whether it's undulating and the distance, you would either choose a road bike or you would choose a TT bike or a triathlon bike. However, for some of the shorter distances, and if it's your first time, just again use what you already have. If you have access to a mountain bike or a hybrid and you're doing a sprint triathlon, that is perfectly fine. When choosing a bike, it can be quite difficult to understand what you need. So if you've signed up for a triathlon and you want to use a road bike, for example, it's difficult to know what type of bike to have, what type of gears, and what's known as the group set. These are the specific sort of brakes and cassettes and gearings that you have. These are all things which are mind-blowing for the first time when you come into the sport. What I would suggest is, don't worry about it. Maybe get some advice from people that you already know in the sport. Maybe get some advice from a local club. But ultimately, go off what your budget is, not necessarily what different group sets there are and the different makes and models and things. With the rest of the equipment beyond the bike, what you ultimately need is a helmet and some form of race gear or clothing. That would be quite personal to you. So you could ride in a tri-suit, or you could ride in a pair of shorts and t-shirts. Again, it's entirely up to you, and it depends on the race, what you're doing, the distance, and how much time you want to spend in triathlon, changing from one item of clothing into another. You'll also need shoes, and this will again depend on the pedals. So it'll depend whether you want to clip in or clip out, and it's one of the biggest fears that new triathletes have is, do I have to clip in? Ultimately, no, you do not. There are some energy efficiency savings that you will get from clip-in pedals, but it's entirely up to you. The chances are, the longer you stay in the sport, the more chance you will eventually use clip-ins. We often get asked about how you should train or where you should train and what you have access to. Some people may only have access to gym bikes because of where they live, and it's just not safe for them to cycle. What I would suggest is, that's okay, but at some point you need to get out on the road and cycle. Again, it'll depend on the race that you're doing. So if you're doing a cross-tri, as I mentioned earlier, chances are you want to be looking for trails and those type of terrains. But if it's ultimately a bog standard triathlon on the road, the best place you can get out and train for that is on the road. You get used to the surfaces, you get used to the potholes and the drains and how to avoid clipping in and clipping out at junctions if that's what you've decided to do, and just being aware of the traffic around you, because not all triathlon races are on closed roads. There are specific coaches out there that will help you devise a training plan and also look at your technique on the bike. If you've got the money to spend on that, that's probably a good place to go, especially if cycling is possibly your weakest discipline. Personally, I don't believe that's needed. There's plenty of clubs out there where people will give you advice. You could join a local cycling club or a tri-specific club, and they will be organised rides and which you can tag along to. You can learn the sort of techniques off other people. You can learn the rules of the road from a cycling point of view as well, and just get used to being out amongst other people, all going in the same direction, possibly all veering for space as well. So again, get out there, speak to your local clubs, and just go from there. The only final point from me then is around fueling. Often within triathlon, if it's a longer distance triathlon, so anything over about 90 minutes in total, what I would suggest is you need to start thinking about some form of fueling. Chances are you won't fuel on the swim just because it's normally the shorter discipline. You won't need anything to that point. But the bike is probably the easiest place to take in some food. You're sat down, you have bags attached to your bike which you can put in food. You've got pockets on your clothing, so it's easier to take something in. So you just need to have a think about what you want to eat while cycling, or it could just come in drink form, and what you can stomach as well. But what I would suggest is anything that you want to do on race day, make sure you practice in training. There you go, guys, a couple of things just to take on board as regards to the bike element if you're a beginner to triathlon. We'll go into further detail in other videos later in the year, but check out our other videos on YouTube. Check us out on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and if you've got a specific topic you want us to discuss, let us know. Cheers all.